Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Curious Card, where we take silly cards and make silly decks with them and play silly games with those decks on PTCGO. This is going to be our first episode with cards from the new set Phantom Forces, and while other people have had their eyes on the new Night Marchers and the Bronzong from this set, I was particularly interested in the new Regigigas. Now, this is the first Regigigas we've gotten since the EX back in Next Destinies. That one was an EX and saw a little bit of play in Ross Cawthorn style Truth decks. This one is not an EX though, it's 130 hit point non-EX basic. So that's already pretty good, on par with the Outraged Dragons in terms of hit points. And it has the move Daunt. For 3 colorless energy, you can do 80 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, any damage done by attacks from the defending Pokemon is reduced by 40. Now, confession time. The reason that I initially liked this card was because I was misinterpreting the attack. The effect of Daunt is not on Regigigas, it is on the Pokemon that Regigigas is daunting. So if you use Daunt on your opponent's active Pokemon, all they have to do is retreat that Pokemon, and the new active Pokemon can do normal damage to Regigigas, which makes Daunt a little bit worse. But it's still pretty good energy to damage output ratio. 3 for 80, especially 3 colorless for 80, is pretty good, and the effect is of course never bad, even though it's going to be not too difficult for our opponent to get out of. But with a Muscle Band, Daunt is actually going to be 2-hit KOing any EX Pokemon short of the Megas, and that's pretty good. And they're going to be struggling to knock us out because we have 130 hit points. So we're going to be running this in the style of a quad deck. We haven't had a real quad deck since the days of Terrakion Noble Victories and Durant, also from Noble Victories. Guess that was a good set for quad decks. But this is going to be in the style of a quad deck in that we're going to be focusing on these 4 Regigigas that we're playing, and everything else in the deck is basically going to be bent to help Regigigas survive. Now, the first thing we need to address is Regigigas' biggest weakness, and that's going to be his weakness to fighting. Fighting decks are very popular still. Furious Fists is the second most recent deck, or set. And so those decks are still running strong. Cards like Donphan are seeded to be even stronger this next format because of cards like Robo Substitute. And of course, Landorus is still running around too. And we can't have that. Now, there's 2 things we could do to counteract this. We could play Water Pokemon, which is certainly an option. We could probably do maybe Keldeo with Water Energy and Muscle Bands, and just get those knockouts on pesky Landorus, I think, and Donphans with Lysander. But that doesn't really fit into the spirit of the quad deck, I feel like. I'd rather try something else. I'd rather just try to get rid of the weakness on Regigigas, and that way we can keep the focus on Regigigas in this deck. Now, there's a few different ways to get rid of weakness entirely. The simplest one, and also probably the riskiest one, would be with something like Shadow Circle, a Stadium. Shadow Circle says that any of your Pokemon with Darkness energy on them have no weakness, so all we'd have to do is use Darkness as our basic energy in this deck, and then our Regigigas would not have any weakness, as long as we have a Darkness energy on them. Pretty simple, pretty easy. The only problem with that is that these fighting style decks often play, or pretty much always play, the Fighting Stadium. And that's going to counter our Shadow Circle. So if we're playing against a clever opponent, they can just drop down their Fighting Stadium, bounce our Shadow Circle to our discard pile, and then our weakness is back online. And I think like a Landorus with a Muscle Band and a Strong Energy is actually already enough to knock out Regigigas. and we can't have that. We will not win that game. We could also use Leovani, which is a stage 2, but we're not going to mess with that. Stage 2s are not ideal in quad-style decks. We're going to take, instead, the road less traveled by and use the Lake Guardian Pokemon. Now, this is hardly ever used in competitive play, mostly because the Lake Guardians take up a lot of bench space to use, and they have pretty low hit points and therefore are a little bit unreliable. But here they are. They center around Mesprit is the one who actually has the ability, but you need all 3 for this to work. Mental Shroud says if you have Uxie and Azelf in play, each of your Pokemon has no weakness. Pretty nifty. Here's Azelf, another 60 hit point basic psychic Pokemon, and Uxie, all with 1 retreat. So if you have one of each of these guys on your bench, then all of your Pokemon have no weakness. No other stipulations, you just have to have all 3 in play. Or excuse me, not necessarily on your bench, as long as they're in play. So that's pretty cool. Like I said, this isn't usually done because you have to have lots of free bench space for this to actually work, but that's actually one of the signatures of a quad-style deck. You have lots of space on your bench. The only other 2 Pokemon we're going to run in here is one Virizion EX with Verdant Wind. As long as we're running Grass Energy as our basic energy, we can avoid any nasty shenanigans with Hypnotoxic Laser or any other status conditions that would slow Regigigas down. So that's a good one of, and we've got one Mr. Mime. Just seems good. We've got lots of bench room, and we've got lots of things on the bench that we want to protect. Our other Regigigas on the bench, and of course the Lake Guardians. We don't want those being hit by Landorus or something. So Mr. Mime's a good one of in here too. So that's all the Pokemon. The trainer cards are also very much bent to help Regigigas. For instance, Aspertia City Gym we play as a 4 of. This is a stadium card that I think a lot of people have almost forgotten about. It's one of the oldest stadium cards in the format. It's from Boundaries Crossed, which is the oldest set that is still legal in the current format. It says each of your colorless Pokemon get plus 20 hit points. So that's pretty nice. This bumps our HP on our Regigigas up to 150, and so it's going to be even harder to knock it out. We play 4 of this because we don't want any other stadiums to come down. We have lots of room to win the stadium war, so, lots of room in our deck, so we might as well play 4 of these bad boys just to make sure we always have maximum hit points on our Regigigas. We also have 4 Muscle Band, another big card in here, adding 20 to all of our attacks. Daunt itself is not going to be taking any 2-hit KOs on Pokemon EX without Muscle Band, unless you're facing a Latias or a Mew EX, something with low hit points. But the majority of EX Pokemon, I should say non-Mega EX Pokemon, have 170 or 180 hit points. So Muscle Band will help us reach those numbers. We also have a town map I think is pretty good in here, just because we don't want Regigigas prize or 1 or 2 of our double colorless energy prized, so that would be bad. So we've got town map to make sure we can dig those out pretty quick. We have 4 total switching cards, 3 switch, 1 escape rope. Regigigas has a very large retreat cost. Makes sense. He's got moss growing on him, so he's a pretty big guy. Doesn't move very much. So if he's brought up by a Lysander, one of our Regigigas with no energy on it, he's probably not coming back without a switch or an escape rope. So I think 4 is a good number in here for that. We've got 3 Ultra Ball just to find our Pokemon pretty quickly. I think that should get the job done. We don't want to run anything like Fan Club in this kind of deck. Quad type decks generally don't need those kind of slower supporter setup cards. We really just need draw support. And for that we've got 4 in, 4 Juniper, only 1 Colress in here. Colress isn't too good because we're not always going to be getting these Lake Trio cards out unless we're fighting Pokemon. So just one of them here, just in case, and 2 Shauna. Not my favorite card, but we needed some more supporters. We're also going to be featuring the new card VS Seeker. It's a reprint from a time when I did not play this game, but I heard it was very good then, so I imagine it'll be pretty good now. It just says put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand. What's really cool about this is as soon as your first copy of Juniper or In hits the discard pile, you immediately have 3 more In kind of added to your deck if you need them. So if you play Juniper and then Juniper into a hand with a VS Seeker, you can play that VS Seeker for a Juniper on your next turn. So it's kind of like having more copies of your favorite supporter, with the only risk being that you might run into Seismitoad, or you might draw your VS Seeker before you actually get any real supporters. Otherwise, VS Seeker is a really, really good card. Also helps get back Lysanders. We play 2 of those. VS Seeker can definitely snag another one, a third one if we need it at the end of the game. The only other trainer card we're playing in here is going to be the new Team Flare Hyper Gear cards. This is a totally new concept mechanic in the Pokemon TCG. These cards can only be attached, kind of like tools, exactly like tools, to your opponent's Pokemon EX. They are nasty little cards that not only prevent your opponents from dropping their own tools onto those Pokemon, but they have a nasty side effect. Jamming Net, in particular here, says that the Pokemon this card is attached to does 20 less damage to all defending Pokemon. So it's kind of like a reverse muscle band. All of the attacks of that Pokemon do 20 less. So this is going to also help keep Regigigas up and running and not knocked out. We're also going to have one of the other Team Flare Hyper Gear, the Headringer. This one's generally considered to be the better of the 2 cards. It says the attacks of the Pokemon this card is attached to costs 1 colorless more. But I think for the purposes of this deck, where we are trying to minimize damage done to Regigigas with Daunt and with Jamming Net now, I think Jamming Net is going to be generally the better choice. But we're going to keep 1 Headringer in here just in case we really need to slow our opponents down by attaching this to some super aggressive Landorus or Genesect that we're worried about. This can really be a devastating card. The energy line is pretty much what you'd expect for double colorless. 6 grass to take advantage of the Verdant Wind ability. And then we've got 2 psychics. Oxy's attack actually isn't too bad. Psi Power is put 3 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. So say we are having trouble finding our muscle bands for some reason, and we have to Daunt twice with no muscle bands. That puts 160 on one of our opponent's Pokemon EX, and if they retreat that Pokemon, that's very disappointing. We wanted a knockout on that Pokemon. So later in the game, when we draw a Psychic Energy, we can just promote Uxie, attach an energy, and then use, Psi Power? Yeah, Psi Power on the benched Pokemon EX and take that knockout like that. So I figure it warrants at least a couple spots in here. Since Regigigas uses colorless energy anyway, might as well. So that's the deck. Let's head over to a game I played on PTCGO and see if Regigigas can get the job done. Alright, going up against Gustavo BRMG. I will take tails. I am wrong. It is heads. So my opponent will get to opt to go first or second. Looks like he's going to go first. So we will start second appropriately, starting slowly with Regigigas. And we are up against a Klefki. Okay, a call for family. So he's going to be able to, on his next turn, get a couple basic Pokemon out. This is probably the new Metal deck featuring Bronzong, which has the ability Metal Links, which lets you get a basic Metal energy card from your discard pile and put it on one of your benched Pokemon. Very similar to the old Electric card. So this is kind of cool. We are getting to see a bunch of new cards from the new set. You'll probably see the Bronzong a lot more than the Regigigas, but there you go. So we have an kind of start. We get a grass energy down, and we play in, get an Aspersia in play. This deck does sometimes play Steel Shelter, which gets rid of special conditions on metal Pokemon. Won't be really like relevant, as we're not gonna like try to poison them or anything, but it will be relevant in the sense that it will get rid of our Aspersia City Gym, and that is bad. But fortunately, we should be able to win that Stadium War. We do play 4, so hopefully we will emerge triumphant from that. I do have a jamming net in my hand. I would like to attach that to the Klefki or the Bronzor, maybe, just to mess with them. But these can only go on Pokemon EX, and so it wouldn't be entirely practical either. They're not going to be attacking with those Pokemon anyway. He does call for family for 2 more Bronzor, so I'm not getting any chance to play these Team Flare cards. I hope I get to at some point in this game. We go ahead and drop another Grass Energy down, and why don't we drop, I think that's Azelf. I actually didn't play any of the video games during this time, so I'm not actually, like, terribly certain which one's Uxie and which one's Azelf. I'm going to say that's Azelf? I don't know. Anyway, okay, here comes some Pokemon EX. Here comes the Steel Shelter. We now have 3 Team Flare cards in our hand, so we'll get to pick and choose which one we attach to that Dialga that just came down. Looks like the first Bronzong is coming down. Metal Links will start happening soon. Thanks to that Battle Compressor he played, he was able to get lots of metal energy into the discard pile. So he's going to attach manually to Dialga, probably use a Metal Lynx here. And he's already going to start getting powered up. He should be able to attack by next turn, which is a scary thought. In the meantime, we're going to see another call for family. Oh, and there's a Keldeo. Now this gives us an opportunity. We can throw some tools down here, or some Team Flare tools, that is, and mess with my opponent. If the Keldeo can't get a Float Stone on it, it's not going to be able to use the normal rush in and retreat strategy. The general strategy of this deck is to use Dialga to use Full Metal Impact, which does 150 damage, but then you have to discard 2 metal energy. And so Bronzong helps you replenish those energy, but that's very hard to do without Keldeo. The idea is that you rush in, then use Metal Links onto Dialga, and then retreat for free, retreat your Keldeo for free with Float Stone. But now that we've attached the Team Flare tool to Keldeo, they can't put Float Stone on Keldeo. So that's going to cause some problems. Now here I'm debating which of these tools to put on the Dialga. I decided to go with the Headringer, just to kind of delay the use of Full Metal Impact and just mess with my opponent a little bit. We in, I think, for the 3rd turn in a row, but thankfully we've got VS Seeker, so we can keep inning a few more times and not worry about running out. Go ahead and drop the Virizion. Never know when that Klefki's going to try to use its second attack, which I think confuses me. I think it's called Dull Light or something weird like that. Unfortunately, we didn't get an energy here, so we can't knock down that Klefki. We're just going to switch into the Azelf. I think, pretty sure it's Azelf. It looks like an Azelf. Can't really see from here. And just let that be knocked out. And then we can get the first big hit with Regigigas. Hopefully next turn. We'll probably use VS Seeker for an in. Lots of Evo Sodas coming down. Not a card I would expect a whole lot in here. Though that's interesting, that Evo Soda, that second one just failed. So that means that my opponent must have some Bronzongs, probably 2 of them, prized. So that might be relevant at some point. He can only use Metal Links twice a turn now. So we'll see what happens here. He is definitely stacking that Dialga up. By the way, fair warning, this is a pretty long game, if you haven't checked the video length already. So just fair warning, this is very much a well-fought game on both sides, so just be prepared for that. The Klefki's going to retreat after we get end, which I do not mind at all. And the Azul's going to go down to a Chrono Wind. We'll go ahead and promote Regigigas. We still don't have an energy. Hopefully we can draw one of those soon. But we did get a Spursia City Gem and Town Map, both welcome cards. So we'll go ahead and bump that Steel Shelter. And Chorus for what will hopefully be an energy. Yes, we got one. We got a Psychic. And this is good. I haven't really been given the option to yet, but I haven't attached any double colorless to this Regigigas yet, because another common card in this metal deck is Aegislash, which has the ability Mighty Shield, which means it can't be touched by Pokemon with special energy on them. So this Regigigas, at least, will be able to deal with any Aegislash that we see. The other, we obviously can't do that for each Regigigas. That would be too slow, and we don't have that many basic energy. But it's good to have at least one that could do something to Aegislash if it hit the field at some point. So we do a Daunt for 100 with the Muscle Band. So that Dialga will be in range of a KO next turn. If I only had the Lysander in the discard pile, I could play that VS Seeker and get it back, and because I'm sure he's going to retreat this turn. I can't imagine him leaving this thing out here. Oftentimes this deck will play Max Potion, just because you can get rid of all the energy and then use Metal Links to get it back. Pretty good card in here, so we may see something like that. Right now he's just going to Metal Link onto the Keldeo and then rush in with the Keldeo. Because of the 2 energy on Keldeo, he can retreat manually. That jamming net has got to be really, really frustrating. Yep, and there's the Max Potion. So he's going to lose, what, 5 energy on that Dialga? And be able to just Metal Link again next turn, or I guess this turn. Yeah, he hasn't actually used his other Bronzong this turn. So we'll go ahead and get one on, and we'll see. If I were him, I'd probably retreat the Keldeo and bring up the Bronzor, seeing as 2 of your Bronzongs are prized. But here's a Megaphone. That's alright. We will find another Muscle Band at some point, hopefully. We've still got 2 left in the deck, 1 in the prizes. Have a Jamming Net in hand. Don't really have anything to attach that to yet. We see another Steel Shelter come down. We've still got 2 Aspersias left in the deck. Hopefully we can dig those up at some point. We do have an Uxie in hand, and we do top deck the Muscle Band. That's cool. We're going to go ahead and drop Uxie. He's the most useful of the late Guardians, just because he has that Psi Power attack that we can use to drop damage counters. We will VS Seeker for Chorus here, give us a nice 8 cards. That's the power of VS Seeker. Get another Regigigas, that's pretty big. Otherwise, no draw support for next turn, but I guess we'll deal with that bridge when we come to it. We do have a Lysander, so maybe we can do some nasty things with that next turn. And we'll just go ahead and Daunt for 100 damage. Probably. Yes, Daunt. That's a lot of text for an attack. So 100 damage. If the Keldeo were to attack us for some reason, it would do 10 damage. Actually, no, it would do no damage because of Jamming Net. I don't think that will happen, though. So we're seeing the Metal Links go on to Klefki, and at this point I'm kind of confused. I'm saying, alright, you can try to attack with Klefki. It won't do any damage. VS Seeker. Probably for a Chorus, yeah. There's wow, is that the 3rd max? No, 2nd, 3rd? A lot of max potions I feel like being played, so definitely playing the prize denial game. And so here's the horrible point in the game at which I realize that Daunt, the effective Daunt, is on the defending Pokemon, not on Regigigas. You can see me being like, what just happened? What's Clefairy's attack? How did it just do damage to me? And then I realize, uh-oh, I didn't read Daunt carefully enough. So at this point, I'm like, okay, my strategy has to change now. I have to be a bit more careful. So yeah, we can knock out this Klefki here, and I think we will do that. We do bump the Steel Shelter for like the second or third time, I'm not sure which. We actually will go ahead and Lysander, get a hit on this Dialga, as it is obviously his plan to bring that up and hit me first, but we'll just go ahead and bring him up and hit him. No real chance of the Dialga doing anything this turn because of that Headringer, but he does play a switch and brings the Klefki back up. We may see another attack for 40 here. Certainly seems to be effective. Oh, no, he's going to Lysander up the other Regigigas, and I guess hope to strand it there, which is not a bad plan against Regigigas. See a computer search for, I don't even know what. We haven't seen him burn through too many attackers. He has no room to bench any other attackers. I'm sure he wish he did. He wishes is the proper conjugation of wish. He wishes he did. We see double Metalink onto the Dialga, getting that ready again. He is determined to overcome the handicap that is Headringer. So we're seeing a lot of energy go on to that Dialga. Our Regigigas does become confused. That's not too bad. Our first Regigigas was being protected from the confusion because of Verdant Wind, so that was actually a pretty big deal. We have a switch and the escape rope, and my decision now is to decide which one to play. If I play the escape rope, I imagine he'll put up the Bronzor. That's what I would do, which would clear a spot on his bench. So with that in mind, I'm not sure why I do this. I think Switch would have probably been the better play because the Klefki is actually doing damage to us. The Bronzor is not. I guess I was just hoping that he would put out something else like the Keldeo that I could bring up with the Lysander later and finish up. But I think Bronzor would be the best choice for him to put up here. After that, we'll probably have to Juniper, which is disappointing. That'll get rid of our other two Team Flare Hyper Gear tools, so we can't use those anymore after this. You know, it just occurred to me, do I play an A-Spec in this deck? I might have completely forgotten to play an A-Spec, you know? I'm just realizing that as I commentate on this game, thinking about that computer search, yeah, I don't think I have any in here. Well, that is an oversight. But, I mean, Regigigas is so good already, and well, it wouldn't really be fair if we were playing an A-Spec as well. So we did Juniper, hoping for an energy. We put up the Regigigas that isn't damaged, that has the double colorless. And we're just going to Daunt with that. We do succeed in getting the energy to Grass Energy. So I'm still worried about the possibility of an Aegislash coming down. So out of the prizes, I'm actually going to grab that Grass Energy, just in case I need to power up the other Regigigas with only basic energy in case an Aegislash comes down. So the Dialga come up. definitely should be worried about the full metal impact. Will be enough to knock us out, even with a Spursha City Gym on the field. Here comes Kobani X. That could definitely ruin our day, taking away our special energy, which this deck definitely relies on. But I think I'd honestly prefer Cobalion to Aegislash here. We see Metal Links going on to the Cobalion 2 energy, an energy switch from the Klefki up to the Dialga. And I think that is a sign that we will be seeing a full metal impact for a knockout on that fresh Regigigas, which is sad. We will put up the Regigigas with enough energy on it now. We can't really put up the other one. We couldn't attack this turn and can't really afford to do that. But we will get the other one ready. And we will take a prize this turn and we'll get another Regigigas out of the prize cards. So we'll have another fresh one in case an Aegislash comes down, just to power up with basic energy. So the only thing to do here is to daunt. We do appear to have won the Stadium War. He doesn't have that many cards left in deck. His Steel Shelters are gone. So I think our Regigigas army will be an army of 150 point golems and not 130 hit point ones. So that is very helpful here. Especially because I think I've got 40 on this one active. So a Steel Bullet would not actually knock me out here, which is a very big deal. Unless we see something like a Muscle Band come down on the Cobalion X, which is very possible. Klefki coming up. I think he has a 1 retreat cost, yep. And we're going to see probably a Steel Bullet here. Does he have the Muscle Band? There's a VS Seeker. What's he going to get with that? Oh, looks like N. That's a good choice. Ending me down to 3 cards. Fortunately, we do draw a VS Seeker and a Juniper. So we can get a supporter of our choice from the discard pile, or just play Juniper. We draw another Juniper, so I think what we'll do here is I would really like to get that last Regigigas out of my deck. So I think I'll just Ultra Ball away the Junipers, and then I can get the Regigigas, bench that, and then we'll have, I think, 8 total bench Pokemon on the field, so I can use VS Seeker for that Chorus and get more cards than I would have with Juniper. So we're going to be looking for more energy here. Got 2 more double colorless and a basic. Once again, still very paranoid about an Aegislash coming down, so it's tricky about where to attach the energy. Do we go ahead and attach the double colorless to the other one and throw caution to the wind? And I think that's what we're going to do. We're just going to say, all right, if you got an Aegislash, I don't think I have time to deal with that anyway, so we're just going to put DCE on both of our bench Regigigas, spread our energy out. And we will daunt the Cobalion for 100. We see another Cobalion come down. Metal Links going on to the Cobalion. This Cobalion, of course, can just manually retreat. That's certainly an option. And then we will have to deal with this Cobalion, which will most certainly knock out our active Regigigas. We do get End again, which is annoying. This one definitely hurts. I don't have a supporter now. I just got an Uxie and a Spursha and an Ultra Ball. So hopefully we can top deck something different here, or some kind of supporter. If not, we'll probably have to stall a turn with one of our other Pokemon, probably Uxie, since he's worth the least. Sorry, Uxie. So our opponent is 3 prizes to 3 prizes now. We're going to just promote Uxie, and it's probably a good thing we did, because we drew a Muscle Band, which is one of the least welcome cards right now. We're going to have to hope our opponent doesn't have a Lysander. He's already used a lot of VS Seekers, Decks nowadays have been like cutting to 1 or 2 Lysander and then just relying on VS Seeker to get that back. But he's already played at least 2 VS Seeker, maybe 3. So I'm hoping that our Regigigas on the bench are safe. Next turn, though, we're going to have to promote one of them blindly and just hope we draw a supporter or an energy. Because this Uxie is not going to make it. In the meantime, I'm sure we'll see some Metal Leaks shenanigans, just getting ready for another attack with another attacker. There it is. It's going to go on to, it looks like he's not even sure. No, maybe? No, I guess he just threw it onto the Kabalion and only did that once this time. Seems like he would put it on the Keldeo too, just in case. Alright, we're going to have to promote one of these Regigigas. We'll go ahead and promote the one with no damage. Why not? And we are lucky enough to draw the double colorless. We'll go ahead and attach that to the active, and we'll be able to daunt for, I guess, 80, or we can just use the other attack. Probably would be smarter to use daunt, but I do use the second attack, whose name I have already forgotten, to do 100 damage. The damage reduction right now, I guess, is not terribly relevant. I assume this Kabalion will retreat anyway, has Floatstone, so I just go ahead and use the other attack. Now, we could be Righteous Edged here, but I'm not sure we will be. My opponent is very low on cards, kind of under a lot of pressure to be taking prizes. And if he just uses Righteous Edge, that's just going to be too slow. That'll be 30 damage, and then he'll have to do 2 more attacks to knock out this Regigigas. And I just don't think he has time to do that. So we are just going to see a Steel Bullet here. And we top deck a Switch, which is not really relevant. I think we'll just let this Regigigas go down. We will just go ahead and attack with Daunt, or it doesn't really matter which one we attack with. And that'll get a knockout. We'll take the Juniper and the Shauna from the discard pile, and then we'll be at 1 prize. So right now we're just going to Ultra Ball here. Anything that is irrelevant that we wouldn't want to be into. Looks like we just have Mesprit left in the deck. So we'll go ahead and grab that. There's lots of energy still, looks like. And that's going to be what we need on our next turn to power up the last Regigigas. I'm not sure if we should bench the Mesprit. I'm going to go ahead and do it, even though it might give our opponent an easy prize later, just to get it out of our deck. And we will Daunt here. Get 2 prizes, Juniper and Shauna, 2 supporters. Just in case we get ends, we want to increase our odds of drawing a supporter right off the bat. Because we don't have too many cards yet either. What we would really like at this point would be a Lysander. A Lysander would win us the game. So we could just bring up like the Klefki or something with low hit points and take that last prize. But we now do see the dreaded Aegislash. So it looks like our only way to win might be Lysander now, because we can't hurt that Aegislash unless like we use Virizion or something, and that would not be efficient. So it looks like he's going to promote the Aegislash. Does he have the last energy to get the knockout? No. It looks like he's just going to put up Aegislash and stall for a turn. We can't hurt it, so I guess might as well. So we're going to play, I think Switch just to be conservative here. Might have been a silly play. I'm not sure. We do draw VS Seeker and Lysander. Good to see both of those are still in the deck. But I suspect we will be end next turn. My opponent needs to play an in to not just lose. because he's now down to 0 cards. Without an in, he's going to deck out, unless he plays like Sacred Ash or something. Or Lysander's trump card, even better. But I imagine we will see a Slash Blast or something like that this turn to get a knockout on the Mesprit. And we'll probably see an in, like I said. So maybe we'll get lucky and get a Lysander or a VS Seeker. Either way, we'll probably promote the Regigigas with just the double colorless because it has more health. Regigigas we generally, Aegislash will generally do 100 damage, not usually enough to get a knockout. Oh, no, we're going to see another conservative play from my opponent, going to rush in and end me. And he's just going to leave the Keldeo active. So I think we'll just like attach, and maybe we probably won't even attach. We'll just play that Shauna and go from there. Hopefully he's just about out of ends. He's already played at least 3 of them, I know. So I guess we will attach to the Mesprit, and we'll Shauna, and there's the VS Seeker, so we can get Lysander next turn. There's 3 ends at least. I didn't see whether the 4th was in there. Computer search is gone. So we may very well have game on this next turn. We'll go ahead and leave the Mesprit out there. Don't want to retreat into anything bad like a Righteous Edge, so we'll just leave that out there until next turn when we can play the VS Seeker. So I'm sure my opponent is just hoping that I don't have the Lysander, because otherwise he probably does have the game here. We might, if we didn't have any Lysanders left, we'd probably just have to put up Risen EX and just kind of hope to stall. But we do see a Slash Blast here. But we do have the VS Seeker, so that is going to be the game. We'll promote this Regigigas, do the VS Seeker, grab the Lysander in the discard pile. And this is really the power of this card, VS Seeker. We will bring out the Cobalion EX and Daunt for the game. Regigigas cannot be daunted. Undauntable Pokemon. So, that was pretty fun. Would have been even better if Daunt worked like I thought it did, but this was pretty cool too. So, hope y'all enjoyed. I'll have more videos from this new set coming soon. I'm Calvin from The Curious Card. I'll see y'all later.